My name is Michael Pittman. I'm a visual artist from Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. I'm primarily a painter, but I work in other media, sculpture and installation. I'm at Fort Dunree with Artlink, completing a 4-week residency to explore the area and create work based on my experience. My work here has been primarily in acrylic paint and drawing materials, graphite, charcoal, and things like that that generally are portable and dry quickly. Fort Dunree has really, I think, influenced my work so far in the way that I look at the environment. I've spent such a long time in Newfoundland and Labrador investigating that sort of place visually. I think it's been really good for me to visit another remote, rural area that isn't home. And look at new things in a different way and see how that influences my practice. So I think my early interest in the visual arts come from family connections, a family of filmmakers and writers and visual artists and art teachers on one side, and then hunters and fishers and storytellers and on the other. So I think that's primarily where this sort of interest in the arts as they relate to place comes from, a very strong connection to place. And then moving away from Newfoundland and Labrador at an early age, you develop, I think a lot of people from there, and from what I hear, perhaps here as well, people develop this sort of romantic longing for home. And so it's easy to fall into the traps, especially for a visual artist, to start sort of pouring that out in your work. And so for me, that was really the root of this sort of, okay, I've got to try to figure out what the actual connection is. It's not these, images that have long been associated with the visual arts in the province. I have a sort of a different connection in a different way. And perhaps there's different imagery and a different visual language that I can use to talk about my connection. First of all, I'll say all my two-dimensional work, I generally describe it all as painting, even though it's not necessarily painting. There's generally quite a bit of paint, but there's often a lot of other materials. There's also sort of scratching and gouging and sanding back through on some of the heavier supports, and a lot of layering of a lot of different things. Lately, my work has been very focused on landscape. Since the pandemic, when my mother passed away, I started investigating sort of the way that her past and the places that she was connected to influenced my personal connection. And so I started dealing a lot with landscape and how that related to trauma and grief and loss. And so the environment played a large role in what I was doing, but there's also a huge sort of library or language of symbols that has developed in my work, dealing with the folklore, superstition, traditional knowledge of Newfoundland and Labrador that has informed all of these other sort of components that always often find their way into my work. Things like certain animals, certain types of marks and textures, and things like that. Yeah, so when I first arrived at Buncrana, I was still trying to find my feet and figure out how things were going to go. I found lovely accommodation just this side of Buncrana, near the beach, and just a fantastic, place to stay while I've been working here. Very nearby, I think it's 7 or 8 kilometers away, and Artlink was able to provide me with access to an electric bicycle, which was, I think it was a really important part of my stay here. Again, it's sort of part of this slowing down and exposure to the environment, and just made things that much different again from my process and my routine at home. It really, just the everyday sort of getting up a little earlier and getting ready, rain or shine, to ride out to the fort from where I was staying. And there wasn't a day, no matter the weather, that I didn't enjoy the ride. the sights and the sounds and the smells and all the things that you experience on a bike that you don't in a car, zipping past the landscape, was a really, I mean, it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it, and I did it for the first while I was here, and every day was something a little different. And so I really appreciated that. And I would recommend, I mean, this area in particular, I think is a great place to see on bicycle. I mean, I'm not a huge, pro. I'm not out riding every day and I'm not super fit. But with the electric bicycle and just the sort of the small rural area and the accessibility of everything and the paths and the way things are, it was just a great way to explore here. And I'm really appreciative of that opportunity. So yeah. Since I've been here, alongside my studio work in the potting shed, which has been primarily two-dimensional drawing and painting, I've just been collecting a lot of imagery, a lot of photographs and a lot of video of a lot of different places. I've been hiking and poking in, all the little towns and places where, that I can get to since I've been here, and just really exploring the environment and getting as much of it recorded as I can, so that when I return home, I'll be able to continue working on the things that I've started here. So I've got a year's worth of work ahead of me when I return home to continue to make work about Inishowen and the things that I've uncovered and discovered and been exposed to since I've been here. So I'm really looking forward to that. And the landscape is what it is, and the place is just so impressive. I think you can't help but get caught up in that. So I'm finding there's a much more of a focus on aspects of the landscape itself, and a little bit less of the sort of symbols and layering and things that also happen in my work. So yeah, since I've been here, I've been introduced to so many people. There have been other artists who've been on residencies here from other countries, which has been excellent. I've gotten to meet them and talk with them and sort of, hear about their practice. Locally, there's been people. I've been here, there's been an opening for a local exhibition, which has been wonderful. A lot of local artists here for that. Yeah, so I think some of the activities I've participated in while I've been here and the workshops and things like that have sort of affected my perspective and influenced my practice, in that I've been able to speak with people and talk to them about what they're doing, but also get some of their stories and information about the land and about the place. Because I find, especially with residencies, you're coming to a place and you're seeing, initially at least, you get a very superficial view of things. And I think that happens in Newfoundland and Labrador as well. And so it's interesting how that sort of returned to be a focal point in my practice. This idea that I'm here making art about a place that is relatively unfamiliar, and then connecting with these people who have, real lived experience with the land and the place, and have real stories about the place and how they grew up and how things have changed in the past 2 or 3 decades and all these things. So that's really been important for me, probably the most important part of the process of being here and participating in the residency, and taking those stories home with me now while I continue to make work about the place is invaluable. In Newfoundland and Labrador, a lot of the larger arts communities are centered on the east coast or the west coast of the island. There's a large active arts community in St. John's. There's an art college in Corner Brook, where there's also a thriving arts community. In central Newfoundland, where I am, there's also an arts community, but there's just less activity around, and I'm generally working in isolation. There are fewer professional artists, very few, in fact. So I generally work alone and have few opportunities to connect with other artists and speak about my work while I'm making it, in particular, which I think is important every now and then. Since I've been here, that's been another important thing, is just being able to make work in an environment where there's so many other creative people. And I can, share not only my experience of this place with them, but talk about my practice in general and the types of things that I do. And it just helps, recharge your creative batteries, I think. Okay, so I'm not completely isolated. There are other people out there doing these same things. And even in other rural areas, such as Donegal and Inishowen, to see the sort of the thriving arts community here and the people who are, you know, making art and making crafts and participating in all these wonderful things has been really, really great. If there was any advice I could give to another artist who was considering applying to a residency like this, I would say just, you know, do it. I think it's been such an excellent experience for me. Everything about it, just the exposure to the environment and the you know, the physical area and the climate, but also the people and the other artists and creative individuals that I've been able to meet and make connections with has been excellent. So I mean, there's nothing, I don't think I could say anything that people could prepare for other than, you know, just come and be open to the place and to the people and to the experience, and I mean, appreciate it for what it is, which is a wonderfully, you know, scenic, wonderfully creative, beautiful environment in which to make work.